Hello everyone, welcome back to our mid-season showdown here at Second Total Collectibles. Sunny, soon to be clear sky, clear night here in Pico Rivera, California. My name is Francis Cornell, alongside me Dennis Geisler. We have made it to top 8, ladies and gentlemen, and we have familiar faces in this top 8, including newly Worlds qualified Grant Weldon against Erik Holmstrom here for this top 8.
Yeah, Grant has been playing fantastic all weekend. Second place yesterday, up into top cut today, and we'll see if he can make a run here again. He has this team, the Tornadus Incarnate, Ogerpon Wellspring, Fluttermane, Urshifu Single Strike, Furdraff, and Heatran. Erik with the Gouging Fire, King Gambit, Amoonguss, Gyarados, Fluttermane, and Landorus Incarnate. Have not seen Erik's team at all yet. It has that Gyarados. We're both big fans of the Gyarados.
Yeah, this Gyarados is more of like the old school variant of running it. I mean, yes, we don't see Dragon Dance on it, unfortunately, but if most of you guys don't know, people used to run Terra Blast Flying on it, like when the generation began, because it was a good way to run a flying stat without really being lethal electric type attacks. Unfortunately, that has not withstood the test of time, as we see most modern Gyarados is just foregoing that all entirely. And we see Grant's team once again. You know, it's the definition of a tail room team. You know, you got Tailwind on one side, Trick Room on the other side. Both of us can work, and for Erik, it's literally a balanced team.
Yeah, these are two teams definitely with a lot of routes around each other. I guess I wonder what I think Erik will decide on as the... Well, I guess I wonder what Grant will decide on as the ideal option in terms of speed control. Because there's a lot of speed control on Grant's team between, as you mentioned, the Tailwind and the Trick Room. Erik has a couple of fast Pokemon, a couple of slow Pokemon. I don't think you want to give Amoonguss an opportunity to get those extremely slow spores, so it might be an opportunity to go for kind of a more Tailwindy approach.
Well, we're going to see here right here now. Okay, Erik's going to bring out the Fluttermane Gouging Fire lead. Tornadus Heatran for Grant. And this booster energy is going to be activated on this Gouging Fire. We've seen this before from Josh, who's currently in top cut as well. But this Gouging Fire is booster speed, and it is the heavily supported version of Gouging Fire, as it loves to use those Howl. I mean, this one does not have Howl, actually. Okay, this is an interesting take on Gouging Fire, but it still retains that Breaking Swipe.
Yeah, going for Snarl instead of Howl, which I like quite a bit.
I mean, it helps right now. It helps right now when you see a Tornado and Heatran.
Yeah, absolutely. And this team is actually pretty specially oriented, so it's not necessarily trying to howl all that much. There's nothing to howl next to other than potentially the King Gambit and maybe the Gyarados, but even the Gyarados probably don't want to do it too much. In any case, I think this is an opportunity to go for the Tailwind, but even then, I'm not sure if the Heatran actually outspeeds. Probably doesn't outspeed.
It does outspeed both Gouging Fire and Fluttermane. It gets the one-hit knockout with that Life Orb boosted Flash Cannon, which is super effective against that Fluttermane. Not the most bulkiest of Pokemon. We do see that, in fact, Snarl comes off the both Pokemon, and thanks to the Covert Cloak, only Heatran gets a special attack drop.
Yeah, and I mean, the Heatran's probably the one you don't want to have the special attack drop. Still has Life Orb, so still pretty strong, but just being able to get rid of that Fluttermane immediately was huge. That is a Specs Fluttermane. It was threatening tons of damage, and Heatran just kind of got rid of it. That was faster than I anticipated out of a Heatran. Heatran can be faster than you think sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. As we're seeing Erik bring in that King Gambit for his next Pokemon, it is that Terra Dark Dreadpoint variant, so it is aiming to do damage with Dark moves, which does look pretty good right now, and I have to wonder now how much is a -1 Heat Wave doing to King Gambit before it tears, because it is weak to fire because of the steel typing and could tear out of it. Just depends on what Erik wants to do with this, and as well as Grant, whether or not you want to use Heatran's Heat Wave at all.
Yeah, and I think on top of that, you have to wonder what the... I'm going to see the Terastal here. You do wonder with Grant as well whether you want to risk going for like a Bleak Windstorm with a chance that it might activate Defiant.
Well, we do find out one answer, and that's Erik doesn't want to take a step for the Heat Wave anytime soon, because we do know that Tornadus has Sunny Day at his disposal. Which it goes for right now.
Yeah, the Sunny Day Heat Wave will still do a pretty substantial amount of damage. I think the burn chance will be very important.
It missed something. It missed a King Gambit. That's probably the more detrimental hit, because Gouging Fire is double resistant thanks to the Fire Dragon typing. Still taking more Life Orb damage because of it. Snarl does also miss. Both targets were importantly missed off Snarl and Heat Wave respectively. Kowtow Cleave. It's going to finish something, and I think this might finish the Tornadus here. No, it does not.
I was going to say, the Tornadus should be bulky enough to take that one Kowtow cleave at least. And now, again, another solid position for Grant to be in here, although you are slowly losing turns of Tailwind. And that Tailwind has been very valuable for you, especially up against this Gouging Fire. I think that it's a tough decision here because Heatran doesn't really have anything ideal in this spot right now. And a Protect here, even a double Protect, isn't a bad idea to try to stall out some turns of...
Ooh, we do see taunt here, so Burning Bulwark no longer an option for the Gouging Fire, which is pretty good to consider when you know that it pretty could protect it, your physical attacker like that Urshifu in the back, and that is going to be a Heat Wave connecting on the Gouging Fire at the very least. They're both trading damage. As of now, Snarl does double connect, does not alternate this Heatran, continuing to get weaker.
Yeah, exactly, and I guess the question now, what does Grant have in the back to deal with this King Gambit in particular, I think is the most dangerous thing. The Gouging Fire, as much as Gouging Fire is still going to be a little difficult, there's the Photosynthesis, not going to activate the booster energy just yet. Yeah. I guess now that it is Terra Dark, you do have the opportunity to go for a Terra Fairy, whatever, and you know that you're going to be super effective against the King Gambit. You know that you're going to be neutral against the Gouging Fire. You can do some serious damage right now, and you still have the Tailwind.
Yeah, all you have is that Tailwind where it's...
I'm not sure if this is the last turn of Tailwind, but if so, Erik might want to try for a double... Well, even the double Protect doesn't really do anything, because you're still... double Protect, keep the King Gambit... yeah, I don't know. I don't.
There's the Terra coming out. Yeah, there's the Terra coming out from the Sluttermane Fairy typing, does a couple things right here. It goes for that Terra Fairy to hit harder with Dazzling Gleam and Moonblast. It also just makes the Dark type moves now not very effective, which although it can still hit hard, not going to get the Sucker Punch knockout that it desperately wants at the very moment. And here it comes into this Heatran, so maybe I underestimated Sucker Punch right there, and that's going to be potentially a one-on-one trade that Erik would like.
I like that trade a lot, especially because I think this Gouging Fire should be able to knock out the Fluttermane in return. Fluttermane's absolutely getting rid of this King Gambit, but if
not enough to knock out the Gouging Fire.
Yeah, the Gouging Fire able to take that hit and probably return with a Heat Crash that should knock it out if that's what it decides to go for.
It's Snarl instead, so definitely wants to control the board for something like... There's something in the back that I think Erik's trying to control the board for, and I'm wondering what that Pokemon is now. So he seems like Urshifu left for the rest of his days in this game one here, and we're going to see Amoonguss come out from Erik. I believe we've only seen Gouging Fire and I believe King Gambit throughout this whole battle for Erik.
We saw the Fluttermane. It was knocked out in the first turn.
Oh, yeah.
So it is down to the last two Pokemon for each of these players, and I think that Grant's in a pretty good spot. Even at -1, a Dazzling Gleam should knock out. I really would have liked to see a Heat Crash there, seen how much it would have done to Fluttermane, because Gouging Fire is faster now that the Tailwind is down. It should be, at least, with the booster energy. So I don't know. I'm kind of iffy about the decision there, and now it's a decent opportunity for the Fluttermane to either play this quite a bit slower or to go for just a Dazzling Gleam, get rid of the Gouging Fire.
Timer's running low on Grant. He needs to make a move, and I believe his move's going to give him the opportunity to knock out his Gouging Fire no matter what ends up happening. Snarl does come out again.
It's still faster, so it's going to get the Snarl, but at the same time, it's going to be this Urshifu, the Urshifu against the Amoonguss here. It's single strike Urshifu, which is a better matchup into Amoonguss than some.
Dazzling Gleam comes out, knocks out Gouging Fire. Amoonguss takes almost no damage here, but now it's Amoonguss versus the world right now, and Amoonguss for Erik only has Clear Smog and Grass Knot for attacks, and I don't think either of them are doing a number on both these Pokemon. Well, maybe Clear Smog onto the Fluttermane, but I wouldn't expect them to knock out. Okay, well, there's the Spore.
Clear Smog's a pretty low damage move.
It is, but even
then,
super
effective matchup, even against a frail Pokemon like Fluttermane. And I think that Shadow Ball is gonna. It's not going to do a ton of damage, and I'm not even sure if it actually do the most damage, but at this point, I don't really see the out here for this Amoonguss.
And the Shadow Ball comes out, the Amoonguss it will be able to survive that hit at the very least. Urshifu will take his first turn of sleep, and you go for Clear Smog here. No, you just go for a Spore. Okay, I think we're playing the long game if we're this Amoonguss. And
yeah, I think it's going to be hoping for 5 turns of sleep, and I don't know how likely that is. We'll see the booster energy activate now for Grant's Fluttermane.
Yeah, now that the sun is faded, it will activate that booster energy to give it that speed boost that it so desperately wants. And now it's down to Urshifu wanting to wake up this turn, because if it does it, it's game over. you need to get damage onto this board as quickly as you can here. Urshifu takes a second turn of sleep. What does the Mungus do here? If you go for Clear Smog on the Flutter Mane, it's really risky. Here comes Grass Knot into the Urshifu. Actually, it's a 2-hit knockout.
That's actually a surprising amount of damage. Maybe
and Flutter Mane wakes up, the game's over.
Yeah. It wasn't going to take too many turns of that, and there we go. Grant winning game number 1.
Yeah, that's
pretty
just
solid fashion.
Yeah, Grant just controlled the board immediately. Well, I mean, I guess Grant did a couple of misplays out of Erik's and kind of played into this because missing a knockout opportunity on the Flutter Mane with the Heat Crash. I mean, dang if it did knock out the Flutter Mane, because we see some Flutter Manes today survive Heat Crashes. And it's just, well, do you trust that it was just one misplay that cost you the set, or was it something completely different?
Yeah, I don't think the Heat Crash is what costed the set entirely. I
don't think so either.
And I think Erik might have realized that the Heat Crash probably was not going to knock out by itself, and the Amoonguss need to play it way slower in order to win. But that kind of means that you have to start with something else. You have to go in a different direction from the start. And I think some of that means trying to either play around or avoid the Tailwind at the beginning, because letting your Flutter Mane get destroyed like that is not really ideal.
No, it is not. And I guess the thing you got to think about if you're Grant is how do you keep with the offensive pressure? Because that offensive pressure was what led Grant to winning that game. You know, the Sunday Day turn 1 to take the Heat Trend one-hit knockout on the Flutter Mane turn 1. Very much 2 good reasons why Grant was able to win that game 1 out of a quick burst.
Yeah, and that then means that if Grant figures out what Erik wants for game number 2, then a pretty easy thing to answer. It's just going to be... It's always a difficult spot to be in after a game 1 like that, especially a game 1 where it seems like this team doesn't have a lot of answers to Tailwind.
Yeah, because your control options literally just gouging fire, and then everything else is just trying to supplement a balance play style. It's like,
yeah,
balance is good, but when your balance options are not doing enough damage to speedsters and Pokemon can take advantage of set speed, I don't know if that's a recipe for success.
Yeah, exactly.
Adaptation is for Erik here, game number 2 here. It's going to be Gouging Fire and Gyarados this time. And Tornadus Urshifu's a switch up for Grant. So we do get the Intimidate at least on the Urshifu, although Wicked Blow's not going to really matter for that regard. And I'm left wondering what does the Gyarados do here, because I don't think either Gouging Fire or Gyarados is able to... At least they're both going to be able to survive a Wicked Blow, but it's more so like, well, what does the Tornadus do here, and what does Erik do here?
Yeah, and I think Tornadus is in a really annoying spot where I think it has to taunt the Gyarados to stop it from being able to use like Thunder Wave and Helping Hand all at once. Like, this is a very supportive Gyarados. At the same time, that leaves the Gyarados Gouging Fire in an opportunity to just take down the Tornadus turn 1, not let it get the Tailwind up.
We'll see what happens here yet. You are right. We are going to see the taunt on the Gyarados, prevent him from using those support moves like the Thunder Wave and the Helping Hand that it has at its disposal. Heat Crash does target the Tornadus here. It does half, which is pretty good. A Wicked Blow goes into the Gouging Fire. Doesn't do half. Thanks to the Gouging Fire's great defense stat, and Gyarados cannot go for Thunder Wave after the taunt.
Yeah, that was almost a really nice turn for Erik, and I don't know if there was going to be a way for Gyarados to finish that one off. It was close. It was certainly close, but yeah, just not going to be able to get that. And now you're in a tough spot if you are Erik, because Grant has basically free opportunity to get up Tailwind this turn, as well as, frankly, I think you can probably Tailwind and then Terry or Urshifu and just launch it Gouging Fire. And what's the worst thing that could happen this turn if you do that? Gouging Fire should drop, and you'll be able to get out of this turn.
Well, here is a Terra, I believe, from Erik, and this is going to be Gyarados the Flying. Are we finally going to see the Terra Blast Flying come out?
I hope so. Best Flying type move in the game.
I mean, it does start to knock out on the Urshifu. Yes, you know, you do know his focus dash, but you do outspeed it with the Gouging Fire, well, until Tailwind happens.
Yeah, I was going to say, the Tailwind Urshifu almost certainly outspeeds, I'd imagine.
Going at the Gyarados, actually, and it is not going to be enough to get the one-hit knockout, and it is just going to fire off a Snarl. That Gouging Fire is going to do that. which leaves the focus dash broken, meaning Terra Blast flying, which comes out here, is going to be able to knock out the Earthshoot because of that fighting type. Gyarados finally using a flying attack like it should, and it gets the knockout.
Yeah, really nice turn there for Erik. I think Grant had to know why that turn happened the way it did, though, and I think that's why Grant bringing in this Flutter Mane now has to be feeling pretty good to potentially go into like a Terrastal here.
But yeah, it's the Terrastal edition gone right now for Erik because it is just invested towards that Gyarados, meaning it's got to be the main winning condition, but you have both a damaged Scorching Fire and a Gyarados, meaning both of them could potentially just drop to a Terra Fairy Moonblast because Grant has yet to use this Terra. But if you do Terra Fairy to Flutter Mane, you got to worry about a couple of things. Primarily, that Kingambit that could potentially come into the bag, as well as a Heat Crash.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yes, you have Tailwind. I mean, you can try to knock us off both Pokemon with Bleak Wind Storm, but we've seen Bleak Wind Storm miss several times.
We have seen Bleak Wind Storm miss several times, but I do think like a Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam here from this Flutter Mane might just be able to knock out both of these, like right now, before anything is able to do anything. And that means that this Flutter Mane will be at full special attack ahead of time.
We are seeing Burning Bulwark coming out from Gouging Fire, so it is just going to protect itself for this very turn, meaning Dazzling Gleam is able to hit this Gyarados pretty cleanly.
I think that's just getting this Gyarados out of the way.
Well, we've seen Gyarados being pretty specially bulky, especially in these times, and it is not enough to knock out. It is not enough to survive here. Gyarados drops to a Terra Fairy Dazzling Gleam. But it did get rid of the first move, so that might have been a worthwhile trade. But this Tornadus, unfortunately, goes for a Bleak Wind Storm into a Protect, and now Erik has a decision to make with his switch in.
Yeah, there's certainly a decision to make, and I don't know what good decisions there are for Erik here. If you can bring in a Moongus and get like a Spore off, maybe. But even still, you're in a really awkward spot where this Gouging Fire is probably... Yeah, this Gouging Fire is probably done next turn.
Well, it depends if it... I mean, it should drop to a Moonblast at this range. If it goes for another Dazzling Gleam, it's not going to be able to do such damage. And, well, Tornadus still has another option, which is to go for Taunts on the Moonblast to make sure you don't Spore ever. And that just leaves it going for that Grass Knot, which I had to assume it does almost nothing to Flutter Mane. Not only because it's very especially bulky, but it's more so very light.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And... it's such an awkward spot to be in if you are Erik. Like you just never have speed priority right now.
Yeah, we see Taunt coming out, so no Spore, no Rage Powder coming in anytime soon for this Amoonguss. Probably has to go for Clear Smog for damage. Gouging Fire is not going to not be able to beat this Flutter Mane here. It should fall this Moonblast, and it does.
Yeah, exactly. And I think Dazzling Gleam might have been able to do it anyways, but the Moonblast certainly will. And Amoonguss isn't threatening anything.
And there's the Spore coming out and just doing nothing. And Erik's last Pokemon is that Flutter Mane, which isn't awful, but as I'm seeing this, it's choice specs. And looking at Grant's team, I mean, yes, you can go for Dazzling Gleam, but that leaves you open to something like a Heatran.
Well, and the problem as well is that this Flutter Mane can't Terrastalize, so it's about to eat either a Moonblast, just a neutral Moonblast. It could have eaten a Shadow Ball as well, but the Moonblast probably just gonna knock it out.
Oh no, it is not. Okay. Not gonna knock out, but this Weakness one will take it out though. And it does half damage to that Amoonguss, and Erik is already throwing the towel. He sees the line, the end of the line.
Yeah, and that's another really well played set by Grant Weldon there. We've seen so much of it this weekend. Second yesterday, he might be able to win today. Geo is not in top cut this time, and it's certainly an option for Grant to be able to finally pick up a win here at the MSS right after punching his ticket to Worlds.
Yeah, and maybe this is a lesson to show us that Tornadus Flutter Mane is still a formidable duo to face off.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Because you have various options. I mean, obviously you got the booster energy speed, which doesn't really help you with Sunny Day activating photosynthesis when you already have the booster energy intact, but it's more so like, you have so many ways to build around Tornadus Flutter Mane. It's just like, the possibilities are endless.
The possibilities really are endless for Flutter Mane. It's it just does too much. It just does too much damage. It does too much all the time.
Yeah, and that's going to be doing it for our first top 8 quarterfinal done. And if you guys have not noticed, again, we've only raised $300 towards the Child's Play charity for essentially giving our loving children some wonderful games and insight, and to help them live much better lives than before. We have a goal of $500 to get to. We only have 300, so if you want to pitch in, go scan the QR code, go !donate on the Twitch chat, or check out Child's Play wherever you get your web browser. And that being said, we'll be right back for our semifinal round and top 4.